what's up? This is TJ. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about sort of an important subject for folks, that are out there that suffer from gear acquisition syndrome. We've all heard about this. It's called G.A.S. otherwise. And I don't suffer from this at all. Bullshit! But I have friends that do, and maybe you do too. So I thought I'd offer some advice on how to get rid of your gear, and also really, how you determine what gear you should keep and what gear you should, let go. And you might wonder, well, why would you want to even bother with all this? Well, it's a way of getting new gear. That's what it's all about. Bullshit! So when doing research for this video, I decided that I should come up with some exacting criteria on what exactly I should consider when I want to let go of some of my gear and sell it. So first thing I looked at was to say, well, there's probably musical things that I want to consider, and there's also money things that I want to consider. So let's first talk about the musical things that I want to consider, because we're all here to make some great music. All right, so criteria number one, am I using the piece of gear on a regular basis? Well, let's take an example for this bass. About 8-10 years ago, I played bass for my brother's band, and I really got into it. Bought this particular Yamaha bass. This is an RBX A2, and it's really, really nice. Problem is, I really haven't played it much since the band broke up. I've been reluctant to sell it because it's sort of semi-rare, sought after, but I haven't been using it. When I want bass in my recordings, I tend to use synthesized bass. So it's probably going to be up for sale. Now, the next criteria that I look at is this piece of gear being duplicated by other gear that I already own and do want to keep? Take, for example, this Telecaster. This is a really nice guitar. This actually was the first Telecaster I've ever bought. Kind of tuned me into why people really like these types of guitars. But I do kind of favor other Telecasters that I own, and this one and one other I'm probably going to let go. Next thing I look at is, does this gear fail what I call the everyday test? Now, what is the everyday test? The everyday test is basically meaning that if I don't use the gear on nearly an everyday basis, will I forget how to use it? If I put it away for a period of time or it's just sitting around and I'm using other gear and I come back to it, do I need to read the manual again to understand how to use it? Such is the case with this. This is the Roland 707 Groove Box. Great piece of gear. Really think it's awesome. But if I don't use it almost every day, I kind of forget how to use some of the more important functions on it. And this also duplicates some other drum machines that I have, so I think I'm going to let it go. All right, so the next thing I'm going to look at is, does this piece of gear still inspire me? Can I create something still new that I haven't done before with it? Do I really think I've taken it to the nth degree? And, before I put something for sale, I'll usually try it out again, see, does it really make sense for me to have this, and does it really make some new music for me? This is what I've done with this Tasty Chips Electronics GR1. I was considering selling this. I played it a few more times. Nobody's getting this one. All right, now we've come to the point where we're going to talk about the money. Hey, it's all about the money, right? Look, you can't get away from it. A lot of musicians, feel like they're higher than that. They don't want to talk about the money. That's fine. But I do realize it is all about the money. If I want to buy new gear, I got to raise money from the old gear. So there's a few criteria that I might want to look at in terms of, deciding to sell something. One of the things I'm going to be looking at is, if I do keep it, is it just money laying on the table per se, not doing anything? And that's very, very important. So decide whether or not I want to keep it or to sell it for that reason. The other thing I want to consider is, some gear tends to appreciate in value. Some gear tends to depreciate in value. So that's a very important consideration. And an example of that, say, is the Yamaha bass that I showed you earlier. That's a somewhat rare bass. It's been increasing in value from what I've seen online. So I may decide that I want to keep it just for that reason. The Roland MC707 that I showed you before, just like most electronic gear, it's going to decrease in value to probably near nothing at some point. So that's another consideration if I do decide to sell it. And the last thing I look at is it really worth selling? In other words, if I'm going to make, $50 or $100 out of it, it's probably not really worth my time. All right, next I want to offer a couple quick tips in regards to selling your gear. They probably should go without mention, but unfortunately they actually do need to be said, and that is, 1, make sure you take good pictures and lots of them. Nothing says to a buyer, I don't care about you, or the gear I'm trying to sell to you, than taking crappy pictures. I know for me, I'm not buying unless I know the pictures are reasonably good. Now, number 2, very, very important, never, did I say never list your gear as being in mint condition. I don't care if you bought it yesterday and you're selling it today, unopened. Don't do it. It just invites scammers to buy your gear, and then once they get it, they'll pick it apart, try to say that there's something wrong with it, and then try to get you to give them money back. Don't do it. Even if they decide, that they're not going to keep it for this given reason, it also invites them to beat the crap out of it and ship it back to you in a shoebox or something. And then you no longer have a piece of gear in mint condition. Well, hey, that's it. All the tips I can give you in regards to the great gear purge that you might have for yourself if you suffer with gear acquisition syndrome, unlike me. Alright, so if you're interested in all the stuff that I'm selling, you can look for it on Reverb.com under the seller name, TJ on the Road. Thanks so much for watching the video. Thank you for sharing and subscribing. And check out TJontheroad.com for more. I will see you next time.